Deutsch, die deutsche Sprache, das deutsche Volk, Deutschland. A frequent question I hear from English speakers is why German is called German in English and why is it called Deutsch in German. So let's clarify a little bit. So German comes from the Germani. There is also a book, Germania, written by a Roman historian Tacitus. It's basically a, let's say, confederation of tribes, although I think a rather loose network of tribes would describe better the situation. In the northeast of Gaul, the term is used both by Tacitus and by Julius Caesar when they try to make the difference between the Gauls and these tribes of other origin. The term itself might actually be of Celtic origin, because if you look in Old Irish, you're going to find a word which is gair, which is actually neighbor. So it might come from there. Anyway, some kind of indigenous tribes, pretty isolated, as Tacitus describes them, but I don't know how well these Roman authors could have been able to really differentiate between varieties of Celtic and varieties of Germanic, so the other languages. And Tacitus writes a lot about them in the book Germania, and he mentions, among other things, that they are unspoiled by foreigners and that they have pure blood and other stuff like that, which would come in handy for some other people in the 19th and 20th century particularly. All right, so this term, Germani, you are going to find in several European languages trying to either refer to the language or to the country. So, for example, Germania in Greek, and then you have Germaniki glossa as in the German language. You can also find it in the name of the country in Romanian and Italian, for example, Germania. In Romanian, you can also say limba germana, so the German language. In Macedonian, among other things, you will find germanski jazyk, so again, the German language. In Bulgarian, you will find the term Germania, as in the country's name, but on the other hand, the language name is Niemski jazyk, which is something Slavic languages do, but I will come to that a little later. And in Russian, the name of the language also comes from this term. Right, let's move on to Deutsch. So why Deutsch? So this is not the name of a tribe. This is actually an old noun meaning people, with the adjective meaning belonging to the people. So in Mittelhochdeutsch, in Middle High German, you have, for example, Deutsch or Teutsch. In an earlier version of the language, in Althochdeutsch, in Old High German, you have Deutsch as well. So this is attested beginning with the 8th century. And in medieval Latin, you have theodiscus as an adjective, and lingua theodisca actually means the language of the people. It's used in reference to all these tribes, the Roman Empire and the later Carolingian Empire had dealings with. You can find documents, for example, correspondence between Charles the Great and the Pope, where this is used like in a formal way to talk about these languages. And the reference is not only to, let's say, Frankish dialects, which would have been what Charles the Great spoke. The reference can also be to Old English, for example, because at some point they're talking, for example, about some delegations in Mercia or something like that. Anyway, Italian, Tedesco, has preserved this word pretty well. And yeah, so basically we can say that it is a word stemming from Old Frankish, from West Old Frankish, theodisk. So this was used to make a difference, to draw a boundary between the language of the people and the language of the elites, of the clergy, of the writers, authors, and so on. So it was something which was not Roman, which was not Latin, but rather, belonging to the commoners. All right. In Middle High German, you also have the term Diet, which is again people, with correspondences in Gothic, for example, Theuda, Theod in Old English, yeah, the same thing, people. You also have in Old Norse Thjóð with the word, my God, I cannot speak today. The word has been preserved in Icelandic as well nowadays, Thjóð, so it just means nation. Interestingly, the same root has given us a couple of words for rulers. So, for example, Theodan in Old Saxon and Theoden in Old English mean ruler. You can find correspondences in other Germanic languages as well. Other reminiscences are in names such as Dietmar and Dietrich. And you can also draw the comparison even further with other languages. So, for example, with Lithuanian, as in tauta, which is nation, or Irish tuath, again, nation or people. Probably the name of the Teutoni tribe, which wreaked havoc in the Roman Empire in about 110 BC, AD. Okay. It also has to do with this idea of people, or belonging to the people. So, in other words, what was attempted was a differentiation between the Roman identity and the identity of these peoples, of these migratory and then sedentary people. And first it started as a collective denomination for West and East Franks. And then the meaning broadened in order to cover what was spoken in a great deal of the Holy Roman Empire. Now, English speakers might believe that they don't have the term Deutsch, but they do actually. It's just that it refers to something else. Yes, I am talking about Dutch. So in Dutch, that would be Duits, yeah, it's German. Duitse Taal would be the German language. There is a bit of confusion here because this term Deutsch was used in English in order to refer to everything spoken, everything Germanic spoken on the continent in the Middle Ages, so in the 14th, 15th century. And later it split into higher and lower Deutsch, and eventually the English language, came to preserve the name only in reference to the people from the Netherlands or Holland. The old use, so encompassing German as well, is actually kept in the name of a dialect spoken in the United States today, or variety of German, which is Pennsylvanian Dutch. So that's German, that's not Dutch. Okay. Now you're going to find cognates in the Scandinavian languages also stemming from this collective noun. So you have Tyska in Swedish, Norwegian, and Tyskland as the name of the country, Thyskan in Icelandic, and Tysk in Danish. So it's basically the same word. Other languages such as French and Spanish, for example, they use a different term which comes from the tribe of the Alamani. So in French you will have Allemand as the language and Allemand as the country, and in Spanish as well you have Alaman as the language and Alemania as the country. So this is in reference to the Alamani tribe, a tribe of Germanic origin, again defeated by Frankish king Clovis or Clodovech in the 5th century, at the end of the 5th century. Interestingly, Finnish and Estonian use a different reference. So in Finnish, the name of the country is Saksa, and the name of the language will be Saksankieli. Saksama is the same in Estonian, almost the same. All right, we do have the tribe of the Saxons, indeed, occupying, let's say, roughly the western part of Germany. But this term is actually of a later date, and it stems from the contacts they had with the Duchy of Saxony, the Duchy of Saxony, which began emerging in the 8th century, so as a part of the Roman Empire. And they probably traded with the so-called Saxons because they occupied a lot of what is now northern Germany. So the Bundesland Saxony, Sachsen nowadays, as well as Sachsen-Anhalt, these two Bundesländer don't really have much to do with the, let's say, historical Saxons, because they were rather occupied by Slavic tribes at the time. Okay, and speaking of Slavic tribes, in most Slavic languages you will find terms about referring to this language stemming from a word, niemu, which means silent or mute. And think about the word mumble in English, because they share a common origin. So the Slavic peoples probably could not reach a very high degree of communication with the Germanic tribes, and they were regarded pretty much as barbarians, because they couldn't understand what they were mumbling. Pretty logical. So you have, for example, in Polish, the name of the country, Niemcy, and Niemieci, I think I butchered that, as the name of the language. Anyway, it is shared among many Slavic languages, so Croatian, Slovak, Ukrainian, and also Hungarian, by the way, who also borrowed it from the Slavs. And in Romanian, my own native language, you can also call the people living in Germany Nemți. But the language, limba nemțească, I don't, was that ever a thing? If I do have Romanian speakers, please tell me if that was ever a thing. Then again, I might be too tired to believe that was ever a thing. Okay, moving on. The last thing I wanted to tell you is what the language German is in Latvian and Lithuanian, because this is also pretty interesting. So, Vacu Valoda would be in Latvian. This is a similar word to vokietis in Lithuanian, probably having to do with an old word for shouting or for, expressing something loud, because in Old Prussian, for example, there is a verb which is extremely similar to these words. And then you can further make the connection to vox, as in voice in Latin. All right, so to sum it up, the word Deutsch comes from a very old word meaning people or belonging to the people, and as you can see, pretty cool historical connections all over Europe, and the map of European languages showing what was specific for everyone in relationship to this language. If I was too incoherent, I apologize. I only slept like 2 hours last night, but I really wanted to make this video, and I hope you found out something interesting from it. If so, please like and subscribe and help this little channel grow so I can make more quality content, preferably when I am not half asleep. Thank you very much. Thank you for putting up with me.